Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition. And today we are going to talk about missed connections in our ascension journey and why we feel like they're missed or what actually even triggers it to even feel like a connection that never happened. Back in the day, years ago, Craigslist is this thing called missed connections. And it was basically, I don't know, maybe 2010, 2011. You would go online, and I heard about it somewhere, and you go online, you read them, and it was basically like, saw this person at a grocery store at this time in this area and would like to connect with them. And even prior to that, in the newspapers, they would have personalized where people would be looking for other people. And it got me thinking, and that stuff kind of popped back into my consciousness. Talked about all the misconnections that we feel like we have. And even in our human consciousness, we always feel like, there's generic terms of the one that got away. Did I miss out? I had a friend that was so hung up on an old relationship she had that she one day said, I wonder if I feel like I miss the other ones. Because I never could let that one I never could resolve it, let it go. And I feel like I missed everything else that would have come after that because I couldn't move on from that. So what starts to happen? And really, what are connections at all? Why do we feel more connected to some people over other people? It doesn't matter how long we've known them. It doesn't matter, age doesn't, none of the physical stuff really matters because they're energetic connections. But a lot of us don't understand that. In our human consciousness, we don't get that it's an energetic pull. We only start to look at that when it starts to go awry and we still want to be with that person, whether it is things are very disrespectful, but we still want to be with that person. When we start to compromise ourselves and disrespect ourselves in the relationship, and we don't even see that till certain parts of the relationship, then we start to look at, well, why is that? What are the reasons why I feel so drawn to this person? And that's a lot of people's endpoint, maybe that's not the word I want to use. Their entry point, maybe it is the endpoint too, to some metaphysical reasons why we are attracted to the people we're attracted to. You get into the twin flame lore and all the things that go on with the twin flames. You get into the soulmates and everyone's a twin. Everyone's technically a soulmate. Everyone's technically a twin. There are some, so usually the romantic ones. They don't have to be, but usually those are the ones people get all bothered about the most. That you just feel very drawn to these people. You have the same energetic signature. And once you work through what they've triggered with that signature, the connection is almost severed. It's a severed connection. And then you go on to another one. And all of a sudden, that person, you feel very drawn to that person. And sometimes you can feel drawn to 2 or 3 people at one time. Because there's an energetic connection there, a similar energetic signature that is bringing you together to fulfill something. You can go back and look at your human experience, and a lot of people that you felt very connected to, you might have seen or been in their sphere for a long time before you met them. And that's how we start to do what they call the cosmic dance. We start to be in their field. And we're in their field, we might never speak for years. But we're exchanging information. We're getting more information about where everybody is energetically. Do you want to try to do a reality together? Is it going to work right now? Do you need to go work on this? Or you need to go work on that? You could probably go back and see every time you might have seen this person that right after you saw them, didn't matter if you talked or not. Human wants the talkie. It doesn't matter. Energetically, it doesn't matter. Energetically, everything's being exchanged, right? We don't need to talk. We're getting an idea. We're kind of taking a snapshot of where everybody is. And hey, can we come do this reality now? Or is it still not the right time yet? More things to work through before I can get to our reality together. So we technically can't miss a connection. Energetically, you can't really miss it. Some might not play out the way we want them to. They don't follow the pattern we want them to follow. They don't follow the cadence we want them to follow. They don't end where our human wanted them to end. They don't have that happy ending a lot of times. Because in this frequency you're in and the frequency they're in, it can't line up for long, or sometimes it can't line up at all. But you might say, gee, I've dreamed about that person for so many years, and then when I finally met them, or we finally started coming together, it just didn't work. In another dimension, you might have a totally different relationship with that person, but not here. You're going to work through a lot of the karmic stuff with that person somewhere else. And we get into the multidimensionality parts of misconnections, it feels even more convoluted. You know, it's like, well, gee, how many do we have, and why are they all over the place? And even with famous people, you know, you see people online that have a lot of I don't know if notoriety might not be the word I want to use, but have a lot of notoriety, the word we're going to use, and we feel drawn to them. And it's like, wow, I don't even know this person. And you see a lot of that getting confused with a lot of people, thinking they know people they don't know. Because multidimensionally, they do. You know, technically, we're all the same person in a sense. We're all one. We're all connected. Some people you just feel that stronger connection to. So when we start getting into, you know, how come that didn't happen, or why didn't it happen the way I wanted it to? It was very short-lived. A lot of them will be very short-lived because, especially when you're in your ascension process and they're not, they're moving so quickly that you can't really keep up. Let me rephrase that. We're moving so quickly, and if they're not in that place, or vice versa, the frequency cannot hold. It will get severed because whatever you're trying to work through that was brought up from that relationship will sever that connection, sever the signature. The signature will no longer be valid. It'll be moot. It'll be transcended in a sense, and you're on to something deeper inside. You know, you can only connect with someone on the level as you're connected with inside yourself. If you're not connected deep inside yourself, you can't connect with somebody else. And that's why a lot of times we feel these misconnections. They can almost feel like connections that just did not work out the way we wanted them to. You know, my friend used to also say, what if the person I was supposed to be with walked by me in a movie theater and I just didn't notice or I didn't see them? That can't happen. You can't miss it that big, you know? I mean, no matter where we are in our ascension, no matter if we're really, even our human consciousness, if we have a contract with someone, at some point we're going to come together to fulfill some part of it. Now, there is a part when you get farther in ascension where you can not participate in some things because you've already transcended the lesson, transcended the aspect that needed that lesson, and you don't require it. It's almost like the contract is now null and void because I don't require it. You know, to me, we have main contracts, we have backups of those contracts in case other people get into other things and they can't make it there. That's why you feel like you have so many in a sense. And then you go through a time you feel like you don't have any at all. Because as you get through that energy signature, you're deeper inside. And now we got to connect deeper with somebody else. And if that person doesn't have the capability to connect deeper with you because they're not connected with themselves, then, or once again, vice versa, it feels like it's missed. It's not going to grow. It can't grow because the common denominators aren't there. And the common denominator is the energy signature. It's not the physical attraction. That's just a byproduct of the energy signature, just to draw you to that person. The human thinks it's all about the physical, you know, contact or the physical draw, the chemistry. You know, that's what human consciousness, that's what we would call it. The chemistry is really there. But it's not about that. It's the energetics is there or it's not there, and it can be there and then it's gone very quickly, and it transcends into something else. You might have something that starts off like you think it's going to be romantic, but very quickly it feels like it can't be anymore. And during where you are in your ascension, a lot of that sexual energy, sexual type relationships go anyway, because you're in more creative energy, and the sexual energy gets transformed into creative energy, and you're not really experiencing that kind of draw anymore. So there's a lot of things that go into why some connections, in a sense, can they get missed? They almost become just not applicable anymore. You know, it's like, I don't need that anymore. So you might go right past someone you might have had a massive connection with 10 or 20 years ago, and now it's done. Because all of a sudden you don't have the marker. The marker in your genes is what's pulling you to them, you know? Your genetic marker, the energy signature, that's what's, you know, connecting you. And once we transcend it, and that's why it can be so, everyone kind of remembers the first time they had that kind of feeling. And sometimes that can be the hardest one in a sense to let go of, because you don't feel like you ever have it again. And then you do have it again. And then, as you go through your human experience and a lot of linear years start to stack up, you have it many times again and again and again. And you realize, okay, that's not the only time I'm going to feel that. That was just this time. And then I'll move on to something else. But we don't have that reference in the beginning. We haven't remembered who we are normally when we're still in our human consciousness, because it's very, the unconscious part of ourselves, unconscious part of our soul. It's just the unconscious part. We don't even realize that's what's going on. We just will say, we fell out of love, or it just didn't work, or the connection wasn't there anymore. And a lot of times we connect for different things. It's not the Disney princess reason we all connect. We're not all going to go live in this castle happily ever after. That might not be the end point to the story, but because that's what we have been programmed to believe, that's what we're going for. That when we don't get these certain happy endings, these certain crescendos in the relationship, then all of a sudden it didn't end right? Or I failed. You'll hear that a lot too, or there was something wrong with them. They couldn't, and it's even so funny that you will even see we were programmed to even continue with relationships that were not going the way we wanted them to, by all the programming we got was with, oh no, this person just can't express themselves, or oh, they just don't know how to love, or all that stuff that we would get bombarded with to keep going down these roads of complete red flag. This is not going to go anywhere, because once again, I know I'm repeating myself on this one, but if you're not connected at the same depth inside, you're not going to connect with the same depth with that person. They're not going to be able to reach where you are, or you're not going to be able to reach where they are. It doesn't mean you never will. It's just at that moment, it technically is going to be missed, because the frequency is the draw. I wrote a long time ago about how my stories seemed to Miranda for a while. Like I felt like I wasn't going anywhere. You're in loops, you're in cycles, sometimes it was the same person, even jobs. You can kind of relate this to anything, because we do have the same thing with coworkers. I usually use romantic as an example, because so many people relate to that, because that's usually their strongest one. The romantic relationships, the sexual relationships, that's what people kind of their entry point into a lot of it. And I remember thinking my story kind of was Mirandering, but because I was Mirandering, I didn't want to do the work to really look at, okay, well, what was it about that person? What did they bring out in you? That's the connection part. The connection they caused with yourself. The connection with them was just the spark to connect more with yourself. Because one of the first things that happens when these connections sever is usually we spend time with ourselves for a while. And there are sometimes we would go counter to that and try to kind of go into other go jump into other relationships right away, because we didn't want to actually feel all the stuff it brought up. And usually that just would take us back around again, because we didn't want to feel it. We didn't really want to look at what was the draw, why did it not work, and what did it bring up in me to see. A lot of times there's going to be, like I said, the connection's just the beginning. That's just to get us to look at whatever program is running to initiate that connection. Technically, if we're not working through programming, we don't really ever need to connect with anyone, in a sense, to that level of program clearing. You can connect with people to create things. You can connect with people to bring something, or, bring a different creative project in, or in that sense, but you're not connecting with people to work anything out, because you've already worked it out. You're connecting with them on a soul level, in a sense. But I say connecting on a soul level, and the minute people hear that, they go, okay, soulmates, and then all the human stuff comes in with that, and the twins, same thing. We kind of convolute the story with the human twin stuff, the human twin experience, and the runners and the chasers, and there can only be one, and you have to keep working at it. No, you don't have to keep working at it. Let me be someone who tells you everyone's a twin, everyone's a soulmate. Another one's going to come around like a bus if you don't work through it with that one. don't worry about it. And when I say work through it, I don't mean work through the relationship with them. Work through the relationship with yourself on why you're there. That's when all of these connections can go more into conscious relationships. Because you understand why you're there. You understand, am I clearing programming here? You're going to get to parts of your ascension process where you're going to be in certain relationships, but you're consciously there. You know what's going on. You might go unconscious from here, there, a little bit here, a little bit there. You'll find your points of lucidity and consciousness kind of stay longer as you start to see the pattern in the relationship, how it's not changing, how one's giving more than the other, and why this is kind of in a tailspin. And you see a lot of people that get really bogged down on the misconnection because maybe they think they didn't do enough. You know, we also go right into that narcissistic aspect of us saying it was me, I was the reason it didn't work, or I could have done this, I could have done that. When it's done, it's done. When it's severed, it's severed. Nothing's gonna bring that back to life because you're never in that same place again. You're never that same person again. You're never gonna be, they're never gonna be in that exact place again to where that, all the energetics lined up for that connection. It's kind of amazing when we have to think about all the things that go into how everything is orchestrated, how we orchestrate it all to meet these people in certain places. And when your consciousness raises and your body consciousness raises, you start to see the patterns, the themes. You start to understand who's going to be where. You start to understand what reality you're in, but based on who's there. You know, what timeline am I in based on where I am? Who's coming in now? Who's leaving now? They can't exist together because I'm integrating in a different aspect with each person. Focus more on what's going on with you. And not so much worry about the relationship as a whole. The relationship as a whole will grow or it will end. And the soul doesn't carry the way. Our human cares. Our human almost takes it off as successful, not successful. Our human doesn't care. Well, let me backtrack. Our soul doesn't care which outcome it is. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is for us to go deeper inside, clear whatever got us into that relationship to begin with, and move on to something else. You know, whether we're going to be done with that, we don't need any more of those type of relationships, or we say, oh, maybe I'm not, like, let's key up another one and we'll bring another connection in. The idea of misconnections and trying to, also there's a lot of trying to force a connection, you know, and there's a reason organically why these things have to come in when they come in, because even if you saw a relationship beautiful and you might know the person you're going to have it with, if you try to force it, like you see them and you want to go talk to them right away, even though they don't want to talk to you, or they're with another person, or you're with another person, but you still feel like we're going to have a reality together. Maybe you don't know even what type you're going to have. Is it going to be romantic? Is it going to be, you know, platonic? It doesn't matter. Like, once again, the soul doesn't care about any of that stuff either. That's all the human stuff that still is intertwined in it. Because there's nothing that's more human than romanticizing any connection we have, you know, having a story to it, that's what Hollywood is based on. It, you are bombarded with it in books, you're bombarded with it everywhere you go. It is so ingrained in our DNA that clearing all of that stuff and really looking at, you know, what is going on here. You know, am I supposed to pursue this connection? It'll be an organic unraveling in a sense when it's the right time for it. And if it's not the right time for it, forcing it, there's a lot of lack and need in that. So now we're twisting the frequency of it. And now we might be able to bring it in, but we're going to bring it in at a different frequency. So it's not going to turn out the way you saw it. You know, I can remember seeing things in my dream state about certain relationships, and I'll go back and go, yeah, that's exactly how it played out. But my human wanted it to be something else. My human wanted it to have a different storybook ending, and that was not what this was. We tend to group everything into one category, you know, and we don't look at all the nuances of what really was that about. Was that about me respecting myself? Was it about that person gaining more respect for themselves? Was that about me not settling when someone else didn't want to really give 100% of themselves? Vice versa. We always have to look at the vice versa. We tend to want to look at the thing, go, oh, that was all them. They were the ones that did it all, and not look at ourselves and go, was I pushing something that wasn't there? Was I not listening? You know, was I really not hearing? because there are no secrets. Everyone tells you what's going on. You know, intuitively we hear it, the frequency we hear. We might not be able to peg what's off with what someone is saying, and what we're hearing, how we're hearing it differently, it feels off. You know, but our humans going to keep going right down that road, even though we know deep down this is not going anywhere, right? But we'll hang in because we're so afraid. It's that whole human thing of we're going to miss out on that. I'm going to miss out on that. There's a reason to go back to the beginning why you didn't get to talk to that person in the Walmart. And we don't need to do a Craigslist misconnections on, hey, I saw you there at the Walmart. Or, you know, you didn't swipe right on Tinder or whatever. Or swipe left. I don't remember now. I don't remember how it used to go. If you have a strong reason and that energy signature pops out with you, and genetically that energy signature becomes active, that code goes on, and they're supposed to be the one that comes in, it doesn't matter where they live, it doesn't matter what continent they're on, what continent you're on, you will come together. Okay? You won't miss it. You can't miss it. Now that does not mean once you get together that you're going to stay in it. Maybe it was supposed to be a 10-year thing and you're like, you know, after 4 weeks, you know, I feel like I fulfilled what I could fulfill. I don't need the rest of this. I can see where this is going. I'm going to close this out. Our human doesn't like to close anything out, and that's one of the big things our soul's going to teach us, how to close it out, how to resolve it, close it out, move on. Our human wants to either, you know, what do they call it, the Irish goodbye. We're going to dip and run. We don't run and deal with it. You know, how many relationships did you have, even human consciousness and even in your awakening and ascended consciousness for a while, that you actually sat down and had a conversation about what was going on and how the relationship was ending? Very few. I will guarantee you, probably very few, because that is not a conversation anybody wants to have. The person who doesn't want it to end doesn't want to hear it, and the person who wants it to end doesn't want to have to say it. So it just kind of they'll let it fizzle out on its own energetically, which brings up a lot of programming in that. But there's a point to that too. You know, until you get to the point you don't need that long close or that ambiguity of what just happened. A lot of us use that ambiguity, our soul will use that ambiguity to kind of get down deep into all of our fears and our projection of ourselves and kind of dig all that stuff up, right? That's why a lot of those relationships go that way. So we can dig all that stuff up. When you don't have any more of that stuff to dig up anymore, it's much easier to come together to hear what someone else wants to say to you, that you just don't take it personal anymore. You understand this is an energetic. All these relationships are energetic. This is not a personal thing. No, we make it personal. It becomes personal to us, but they're not personal. And if it's personal, that's a human stuff getting involved in it. You know, you have to look at it. A lot of people, when we go through a lot of our different galactic activations and galactic phases, galactic years, we'll have that detachedness in it. And I know men get a lot of, the brunt of that, because a lot of them to be hailed a little more galactic than females do in general. And they're known to be that more detached because they just don't, they're programmed different. You know, their human programming is a different programming, so they can go through ascension a little differently than females can go through it. Now, technically, you know, we're all divine masculine, divine feminine, but when we start breaking out human masculine, human feminine, there is some nuances, I think, to how the journey goes and how men are perceived. But it can start to flip-flop, where all of a sudden you're noticing you don't take it personally anymore because you understand that it's not personal. It's not really missed. This is just, we did what we were supposed to do. Mission accomplished, check that box. And we go on to the next thing. It might never be another romantic relationship again, because if you don't require that, and after a while in ascension, it's not going to be. You don't really have an interest in those types of connections anymore. It doesn't mean you might not want to connect with people and do some amazing things together and have fun and enjoy spending time with people, but you don't have the need for that. Our human had a need for that. It was conditioned to be with people. It was not conditioned to be alone. And when you first start going through your ascension process and you're alone, you still get into that, oh my God, I missed it. Oh my God, I missed that connection. I missed that. You can't miss it. Sometimes you might wish you missed it. You might be sitting there going, I wish I'd missed it. But it was that important for your ascension and your awakening to have that connection. Right? So, okay. That's one reason why you'll always look back at things, go, the timing had to be perfect there for me to meet that person. They were only in town for, our layover one night, and I had to be at this exact place and meet them for 5 minutes and then maybe connect with them 3 or 4 months later. It's all planned. It's all orchestrated. We're all hitting our marks like in theater. We're on stage. It's just our own thing. It's our own play. And it's quite a miracle that we ever end up where we're supposed to, because we can't miss it. We can consciously let it go by, but when you're not in that ascension place yet, you can't miss it. Okay. Keep practicing the art of intuition.